Our next topic is bryophytes. Well, we are going from the evolutionary lines, right? By using the evolutionary line, we are studying all those things. First of all, we have in the first unit we have studied about the acellular forms, right? Acellular forms we have studied which are not living, just like the viroids, viruses, and the prions. After that, we move to the bacteria, then to the fungi, and after that, we have studied the algae, then the cyanobacteria. Now, after the algae, cyanobacteria, we have studied the lichens. So, from the evolutionary line, we are studying the every kind of organism, and in that line, the next is the bryophytes. So, bryophytes are the very, very important group of the plant kingdom because bryophytes are such a connecting link between the terrestrial and the aquatic plants, and these bryophytes show the very unique characteristics which are not possessed by the other plant kingdom members. Okay, so these bryophytes are quite interesting to study, and plus they are also shows certain characteristics which are matching to the algae, and some of them are also matching to the pteridophytes. So it is the in-between group which is present or located between the algae and the pteridophytes on the evolutionary line. So we have to study its structure, then also we have to study its reproduction, and after studying the structure and reproduction, we should go through the how the evolution occurs in the bryophytes, and after that finally we have to study its economic plus the ecological importance. Okay, this is from the UPSC mains examination point of view. Just like the lichens, we have studied them in a very detail. In a very similar way, we are going to study the bryophytes. Okay, every aspect of the bryophytes we are going to cover in the next 2 to 3 lectures. Okay, so let us consider introduction to the bryophytes. In this particular video lecture, we are just going to introduce to the bryophytes. Okay, that is what are bryophytes, what type of common structures are found in this, what types of typical structure which are only limited to the bryophytes, and how they are evolved from the algae and how they matches themselves with the pteridophytes. Okay, these all these introductory points relating with their habitat, their shape, or their thallus structure, or their homothelic or heterothelic nature, or what is the why they are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Just like that, we are going to just introduce the bryophytes to you in this particular video lecture. All right, now consider this is your syllabus. This is the unit 2 of the chapter 1, that is the cryptogams, and here we have the bryophytes. Okay, and in this category you have to study its structure and reproduction from the evolutionary point of view. After that, you have to study the ecological and the economic importance. All right, now consider the first introductory slide. See, introduction. The bryophytes includes the non-vascular plants, non-vascular photosynthetic land plants. So very important two words. See how we are describing the bryophytes as the non-vascular plants. Now vascular, this literally means vascular literally means the one which possesses the conducting tissue. Now what are the conducting tissue in the plants? Conducting tissue in the plants are the xylem and the phloem, right? The first is the xylem and second is the phloem. These are the conducting tissue in the plants because the xylem conducts the water while the phloem conducts the food material. So conduction of the food throughout the plant is occurred by the phloem, and the conduction of the water throughout the plant body is done by the xylem. But both of these vascular tissues, both of these conducting tissues, or both of these vascular tissues, that is the xylem and the phloem, both are absent in the bryophytes as they are in the algae. Okay, algae they are absent in the algae, they are also absent in the bryophytes. So bryophytes are rightly described as the non-vascular, and why we are calling them non-vascular? Because they lack xylem and phloem, and this shows why they require water for their growth and development. Why they always found in the shady areas? Because they do not have conducting tissue. If they somehow manage to absorb the water, they cannot conduct throughout their bodies, and that is why they have to place their whole bodies in the nearby moisture or in the water, so that they don't have to conduct the water from one place to the other place. Same is the case for the algae. Algae don't have the xylem and phloem, and that is why they have to live in the aquatic habitat. So aquatic habitat or the moisture conditions are also required for the bryophytes. Well, we call them as amphibians of the plant kingdom because some of them have the terrestrial habitat, but still for their reproductive purposes they requires the water, and that is why this is the very basic reason that the xylem and phloem is absent, and that is why they always have to live in and around the water. Okay, now they can be classified as the mosses or the liverworts. Okay, general classification of the bryophytes we can be done into the two groups, that is called as the mosses and the liverworts. Okay, majority of the time mosses are asked by the UPSC examination, so we have to take care of that as well. So the bryophytes are the non-vascular and the photosynthetic land plants. Okay, land plants, which literally means which lives on the land, which shows the terrestrial land as their habitat. Because till the algae, we do not have the terrestrial till the algae, which is primarily aquatic, we do not find any typical plants which are living on the land, because lichens are the combination of the fungi and the algae, or the fungi or the cyanobacteria. So typically they are not the plants, but they are nearly to the plants because they can photosynthesize. But algae is a typical plant which lives in aquatic conditions, but the bryophytes are the first plants which can grow on the land. So the first plant group to be grow on the land are called as the bryophytes. They can be classified as the liverworts or the mosses, and are commonly found in the moist shaded areas in the hills. Just because they always require the water for their growth and development, because they lack the xylem and phloem, and that is why they cannot do absorption from the soil. And if they are not able to absorb the water from the soil, they must acquire it from the surrounding. And if they want to acquire the water from the surrounding, they must live in and around the moisture areas. Okay, and that is why they always found in the moist and shaded areas. Whatever the shade is there, they use that shade in order to not to get desiccated. Plus, they use all the aquatic areas for their growth and development, because they lack the xylem and phloem, that is, they are non-vascular. Okay. Now consider the absence of the vascular tissue limits the bryophyte to the moist habitat. This is what we are explaining right now. Because vascular tissue, if they are absent, now see what happens when the vascular tissue are present. Whenever there is a vascular tissue which are present in the plant, what the vascular tissue do? If the plant possesses the vascular tissues, that is the xylem and phloem, the roots absorb the water, and through this xylem, the water is transported to the all over to the plant body. That is, xylem is used to capture and transport the water throughout the plant body. So plant don't have to live around the water bodies. They can grow anywhere. Roots grow in the soil, and roots find the water, and they absorb the water. And when they absorb the water, this water goes through the xylem, and it reaches to the all over the plant body. This is happens when there is a presence of xylem and phloem. That is, xylem typically for the water and phloem typically for the food purposes. If the plant don't have the presence of this xylem, then it must live in or around the water, and that is why the bryophytes always found themselves limited to the moist habitat only. Because once they are in the drier habitat, they start to desiccate, and they died in the process. And hence they are limited in size as well, because of the lower availability of water and no conduction of the water throughout the body, they cannot manage the bigger size. And that is why they always remain small. Just like you can see in this particular picture, here is a thalli of the bryophyte, which shows the very limited size. They cannot grow like pteridophytes or the angiosperms or the gymnosperm, the bigger size plants, because they has the vascular tissue. All these plants possess the vascular tissue, and that is why they show the very bigger body. But the size of the bryophytes is always limited. And what is the evolutionary reason behind that? The evolutionary reason behind that is they lack the xylem and phloem, and that is why they cannot distribute the water properly in their bodies, and that is why they cannot afford to have the big body size. Okay, and were among the first plants to be lived in the water and settle on the terrestrial environment. Okay, these are the first plant which live inside the water as well, and they are the first plant to settle on the terrestrial environment. Okay, so these are the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Generally, when we say the amphibians in the animal kingdom, amphibians are those animals which can live in the water as well as on the terrestrial land. That is, the first animals which came out of the water are called as the amphibians. So similar is the case for the bryophytes. Bryophytes can live inside the water as well as they show the habitat on the terrestrial as well. In the aquatic, they use the water for their fertilization purpose, and the terrestrial life to complete the rest of the life cycle. So the plants which can grow inside the water as well as on the terrestrial, and that is why these plants are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom, and these are first plants to come out of the water and live on the land. Okay, and that is why this makes these bryophytes a very special kind of plants. Okay, now consider the second slide. Let's consider its habitat. As we rightly describe the bryophytes as a amphibians of the plant kingdom, because they can live on the soil, but they are dependent on the water for their sexual way of reproduction. That is, you can observe in this particular picture, they are living on the land, they are living on the soil, but whenever their reproductive phase approaches, in the reproductive phase, to transfer the male gamete to the female gamete, they require water as a abiotic factor. Okay, this water is called as the abiotic factor, and this abiotic factor is required to swim the male gamete to the female gamete in order to achieve the sexual reproduction. So although they can use terrestrial land or the soil area for their growth and development, but they still require water for the sexual reproduction purpose. And that is why we rightly describe them as a amphibians of the plant kingdom. Half of their life cycle depends on the plants, depends on the water, and half of their life cycle can live without the water. So that is why they are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Now consider the bryophytes. Of course, they are found on the terrestrial land as well as in the aquatic habitats, right? There are no representatives in the seas, that is in the salty water. they do not favor the salty or the marine water. Now this is against the algae. Okay, now algae typically grows in the marine environment, but the bryophytes do not favor this marine environment, and they like to live in or around the freshwater bodies or near the coastal areas. If it is a salty water, there are some exceptions in which the bryophytes can tolerate the salt, but majority of them like to live in or around the freshwater bodies. That is why always in the forest area you will find the majority of the ground is occupied by the bryophytes, because they do not favor the salty water or the marine water, and this salty water or the marine water is limiting factor for the bryophytes, because bryophytes cannot tolerate the salty or the marine environment. Okay, so that is why there are no representatives in the seas, but there are some bryophytes which found in the blackish water or the moderate salt areas. Okay, moderate salt areas, if they are there, then moderate salt tolerance is there in these bryophytes. Okay, they can tolerate the moderate salt, but not the saline environment. Okay, not the marine environment, not the salty water, not the saline environment. Okay, so typically you have to remember that although algae can be found in the freshwater, marine water, they actually the Phaeophyceae members or the Rhodophyceae members are typically found in the marine water, but the bryophytes on the other hand, they do not favor the marine water or the marine environment or the salty water. This is a very important characteristic distinguishing point between the algae and the bryophyte, because algae on the one hand can live inside the marine environment, but on the other hand the bryophytes cannot tolerate the salty water. Now see, this is how the evolution occurs. This is called as the evolution, because some forms on the life are evolved to live in for using such a type of environment. That is 70% of our waters are the marine waters. There is a maximum amount of water on the earth which is the marine water. The algae have used its body to live in these marine environment. They got used to it, but the bryophytes on the other hand, which are evolved itself from the algae, have lived behind this adaptation, and they can grow in or around the freshwater only. So this is how the evolution is taking place. They are coming out of the marine environment, and now they are coming out of the water, and now they are living on the land. Okay, so when we talk about the habitat of the bryophytes, they are famously called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom, because they half of their vegetative life is on the land, but their sexual way of reproduction is require the water. So the terrestrial aquatic habitat shown by these bryophytes, and there are no representatives for the seas. That is, they do not favor the marine environment. Because some of them can be found in the blackish water or the moderate salty areas. Okay. Now consider the bryophytes forms the flattened mats, just like this. Observe this particular picture. You can see it's like a mat. Okay. Bryophyte is just like forming the mats on the ground. If you carefully see, you will not see the soil below. So this is how they create the mat on the ground. A thin layer of mat is created by the bryophytes on the grounds, which is often spongy like carpets. Okay, in the area where they grow. Generally, on the forest floor, when you observe the forest floor, the whole forest floor is like somebody has put their carpet of the bryophyte. Because bryophytes has the ability to grow like this, they continuously form the thallus which are attached to one another, and they continuously grow in the surrounding areas. And that is why they form the carpet-like structures in their areas. Now, these growth forms are usually correlated with the humidity. Okay, of course, this type of growth is typically dependent on the humidity. That is, how much of moisture is present in the environment. It will depend on that how these particular bryophytes grow there. Plus, how the sunlight is available in that particular habitat. Because sunlight is always the limiting factor for the photosynthetic organism, and the bryophytes are also not the exceptions. Because bryophytes are the photosynthetic organism, and they require the sunlight for their photosynthesis purpose. So the first requirement for the bryophyte is the moisture in the air, that is the humidity. And second, how is the sunlight available? Depending upon that, they continuously form the carpet on the forest floors. And you should remember that if there is a certain limiting factor, like if there is a less humidity or the less sunlight in that particular area, this carpet will break there. Okay. That means there will not be any formation of carpet in such area, and that is why you will find the blank spaces there. So that is why these bryophytes are famously known for their ecological roles, such as they reduce the soil erosion. As you know, soil erosion is the removal of the soil due to the water. Okay, when there is a flood condition or when there is a heavy raining and the upper fertile layer of the soil is removed by this water, this type of phenomenon is called as the soil erosion, and it will greatly reduce the fertility of the soil. Whatever the fertility of soil is there is greatly reduced by the soil erosion. But now see, If there is a carpet of the bryophytes on the forest floor, and in such a case the floods or the heavy rain comes, there will not be any soil erosion because water directly cannot comes in contact with the soil, but it first came in contact with the bryophytes, and that is why the impact of the water is significantly reduced, and hence it reduces the soil erosion. So also they are reducing the soil erosion in the forest areas, plus also they are providing the habitat to the various animals. Of course, various types of insect found their habitat inside these thickly distributed bryophytes, because the majority of the small animals, including the insects, find their habitat in these particular bryophytes. So ecologically they are very important, because of their peculiar structure and growth forms, they do the typical they do the very different types of the ecological roles in the ecosystem. So in that sense they are very unique. So due to their growth form, they can form the carpet on the forest floor, and they do this where there is a optimum humidity and the sunlight, and that is why they are able to reduce the soil erosion and provide habitat to the maximum animals. Right now, consider the structure. Let us consider what types of the structure shown by these bryophytes. Okay. Now, see the plant body of bryophytes is either thalloid or the attached to the substratum by the hair-like structure, which are called as the rhizoid. See, there is a range of the thalluses. Okay, in the structure of the bryophytes. The bryophyte shows the very diverse structures. Some form of the thalloid form. Okay, thalloid means the one which shows only the thallus, just like you can observe in this particular picture. This is an Marchantia, and it is showing the thallus only. Here you can observe this is the one complete thallus. It's look like a one leaf. Okay, and what you see on these thallus, you must have identified them. These are called as the Jimma cups, right? These are called as Jimma cups, which are useful in the vegetative reproduction. So sometimes they show the thalloid structure, which is made up of the one thallus only. And on that thallus, which is the photosynthetic thallus, which is the green thallus, they produce the various kinds of structure like a Jimma cups. Then sometimes they show some differentiation in their bodies, and they attach to themselves to the substratum by the structures which are called as the rhizoids. Okay, rhizoids are equivalent to the roots. Okay, see in the second picture, what you are seeing here is the sphagnum. Okay, is showing the differentiation in their body, and they also shows the structure which is similar to the roots in the higher plants, but these are called as the rhizoids. Okay, of course, in the lichens you must have heard about the rhizines. Okay, and in the algae what we have discussed is the holdfast. Okay, of course, you have to remember all this structure because the correlation is there. Now the holdfast in the algae is used to attach to the substratum. In the lichens we have find the rhizine, and in the bryophytes what we have are the proper rhizoids. Okay, then the rhizoids are there. Then sometimes there is a stem-like structure which is called as caulelia. Okay, just like this is the stem-like structure in the bryophytes. It is called as the caulelia, and the leaf-like structures were also arising from these bryophytes on both the sides. These are called as the phyllids. Okay, so phyllids, caulelia, all these structures you have to remember. Okay, so here we have rhizoids, here we have the caulelia, and here we have the phylloids. So this type of differentiation also found in the bryophyte. Now, if you observe carefully, this phylloid later got converted into the leaves on the evolutionary line. This caulelia got converted into the stem, and these rhizoids got converted into the roots. So in the higher plants, we found the stem, leaves, stem, and roots. But in the bryophytes, what we find there pseudotypes, which are not evolved that much, which is called as the phylloids, caulelia, and the rhizoids. Okay. So these structures on the evolutionary line, after the much evolution in the pteridophytes and the angiosperms and the gymnosperm, all these got converted into the leaves, stem, and roots. Okay, so on the evolutionary line, the evolution is happen like this in the plant kingdom. So the structure of the bryophytes can be the thalloid structure, or it can shows the differentiation in the form of rhizoids, caulelia, or the phylloids. Okay, and typically, see, very important, anatomically, they do not show the presence of cuticle or stomata. There is no cuticle, because as you know, cuticle is found in the majority of the mesophytic and the xerophytic habitat. Now, mesophytic and xerophytic habitat, as you know, mesophytic plants are those plants which live when there is optimum conditions of the water. Okay, not much water is present there, and not much less water is also present there. So optimum kind of water is present there, and in such a condition, when the plants grows, these plants called as the mesophyte, while the xerophytes are those plants which can live where there is a very scarcity of water, very less amount of water is present there, but still these xerophytes are able to live there. Now both of these, that is the bryophyte, that is the mesophytic and the xerophytic habitat plants, shows the presence of cuticle. because they want to avoid the loss of water through the transpiration. Okay, and that is why they show this typical structure in their anatomy, that is above their epidermis what they show the presence of the cuticle. Cuticle is typically present on their epidermis to avoid the transpiration. Transpiration is nothing but the loss of water from the plant body in the form of vapors. So the mesophytes and xerophytes take care of their water content in their body, and they start creating the cuticle on their epidermis to avoid this water loss. But this cuticle is typically absent in the bryophytes, because bryophytes on the other hand do not care about the water loss, because they always live in and around the water. Okay, in and around the water, they find their habitat, and that is why they do not care about the water loss. So the cuticle is typically absent. Okay, cuticle typically absent, and the stomata is also absent in these. So this is a very peculiar type of characteristics which makes them very different from the higher plants. So these bryophytes shows the thyroid body. Sometimes it shows the differentiation in the form of rhizoids, caulilia, and phyllates, and plus it also shows the absence of the cuticle and the stomata in their structures. Okay, now consider the next slide. See, the plant body of bryophytes is more differentiated than that of the algae. Of course, we agree on that, because algae, on the other hand, shows the structure which are called as the fronds. Okay, you should carefully remember this, and actually you have to create the charts how the structures are evolving. We have talked about the fronds, we have talked about this type, and we have talked about the hold fast. Of course, these are three structures we have studied in the algae. Okay, and the Phaeophyce members are showing this. Now these are fronds. Now we are these are fronds are calling as the phyllates here. Then this type is called as the caulilia, and now these holdfast are converted into the rhizoids. Okay, so structures are changing right from the algae, the bryophytes showing the different kinds of structures. That is why we are saying that these are phyllates, caulilia, and the rhizoids are advanced than the fronds type and holdfast, and that is why we say that the bryophytes are quite advanced than the algae. There is a second reason why we are saying that, because algae requires always requires the water, that is the aquatic condition, for their growth and development. But the bryophytes, on the other hand, sometimes can live without the water on the soil. They can fulfill their vegetative growth on the land surfaces as well. So that is why after not completely dependent on the water and showing the certain kinds of differentiation in their structure makes the bryophytes more advanced than the algae. Okay, now its thallus is prostrate or the erect. It may be prostrate or it may be erect. Sometimes this thallus, which shows the thalloid form, these members show some thalluses which are prostrate. Prostrate, which literally means which attached to the ground itself. For example, this is the ground, and this is how there is a thallus, and it is completely attached to the ground. Okay, but sometimes this also shows the erect thallus like this, somewhat above the ground. Somewhat erect thalluses are there, and also there are some thalluses which are completely prostrate to the soil. Okay, attached to the substrata by the unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. Okay, the more let's talk about the rhizoids. The rhizoids are the slender, which literally means thin. Very thin structures are there. These are called as the rhizoids. They are only sparingly branched. Okay, branching, whatever the branching pattern is there in these bryophytes, the rhizoids shows the very sparingly branching, because in the higher plants we find the very complex branching in the roots, but this complex branching is not present in these particular bryophytes. They show very sparingly branching, and that literally means not much of the complex branching is present. So simple types of slender thin structures are present there, which are not that much branch, which are not that much complex. Then these are rhizoids function primarily as the anchoring substrate. This is very important. Please listen this carefully, that these rhizoids are used for the anchoring purposes. What is the purpose of the rhizoids in the bryophytes? Is they are the anchoring structures, and they are not for the water or nutrient uptake. They are not the major sites of the water or the nutrient uptake. Okay, because this is the contrasting point. Whenever we talk about the rhizoids, we compare them with the roots, right? And what roots does? They absorb the water and nutrient from the soil. But the rhizoids are completely different in this sense, because rhizoids are purely used for the anchoring purpose. That is to attach the thallus to the substratum, to attach the differentiated plant body into the soil. But they are not used for the new water and the nutrient uptake. Okay, water and the nutrient uptake is not their major function. What is their major function? Is the anchoring the plant body to the substrata. So These bryophytes which are showing the thallus, it may be prostrate or erect, and there is a presence of unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. These rhizoids are the slender, that is, they are very thin and they are sparingly branched, and they are primarily used for the anchoring purposes and not for the water and the nutrient uptake. Okay, so very important point regarding the bryophytes, because whenever you write about the rhizoids, unconsciously you think about the roots, and what roots does, they absorb the water and mineral for the plant, but this is not the true for the bryophytes. What bryophytes shows, the rhizoids which are present in the bryophytes, which these are only for the anchoring purposes. These are anchoring structures to the, in order to anchor to the substratum, and they are not the major sites for the water and the nutrient uptake. All right. Now consider the bryophytes shows the alteration of the generations. Of course, just like the algae, this also shows the alteration of the generation in which the haploid gametophyte. Okay, whatever the gametophyte is there, this haploid gametophyte, haploid which literally means which contains the single set of the genome, that is the N. Okay, so haploid genome is there, and this is the haploid gametophyte which alternates with the diploid sporophyte. Okay, there is a second one which is called as the sporophyte, and this diploid sporophyte which shows the twice N, which is the diploid sporophyte, right, it alternates with it. That is the gametophyte alternates with the sporophyte. Gametophyte is haploid, sporophyte is diploid. While this gametophyte produces the gametes, as the name suggests, it produces the male and female gametes. Okay, whatever the male and female gametes are there, these are produced by the gametophyte, and after the fusion of this male and female gamete, it produces the sporophyte, and after production of the sporophyte, this sporophyte produces the spores for the asexual reproduction, and from these spores the gametophytes are created. Okay, so the gametophytes and the sporophytes are alternating with each other in the bryophytes, and the gametophyte is a haploid while the sporophyte is the diploid. Okay, gametophyte is responsible for the production of male and female gamete. After the fusion of these male and female gamete, they create the sporophyte. Then the sporophyte creates the spores, and the spores produces the gametophytic plants again. Okay, so this is how the alternation and generation occurs in the bryophytes. All right. The gametophytic plant body is the haploid plant body. You should carefully remember it. Okay, haploid plant body, and the sporophytic plant body is the diploid plant body. That is, haploid we denoted by the N, and diploid in the genetics we denote by the twice N. So these gametophyte produce the male gamete, right, and the female gamete. That is, the male gamete and the female gametes are produced by the gametophyte. Okay, and these are male gamete and female gamete. After they fuse, they create the zygote, and zygote got converted into the sporophyte. Then these sporophyte produce the asexual spores. Okay, these are the asexual spores. These asexual spores give rise to the gametophyte. Then again, these gametophytes produces the male and female gamete. After their fusion, it results in the sporophyte. Sporophyte again produces the spores asexually. Then this forms the gametophyte. Gametophyte again produces the male and female gametophyte. They fuse together to produce the sporophyte. This is how the alteration of generation occurs in the bryophytes. Okay, so in the bryophytes, they shows the alteration of generation, that is the haploid gametophyte which produces the gametes for the sexual reproduction. It alternates with the diploid sporophyte which produces the spores for the asexual reproduction. The very simple kind of arrangement is there. That is, in the bryophytes, we find that there is a presence of the gametophyte on the sporophytic plant body, and the gametophyte alternates with the sporophyte. Gametophyte on the one hand is the haploid plant body, and the sporophyte on the other hand is the diploid plant body. Gametophyte is responsible for the production of male and female gametes, and after their fusion, they create the sporophyte, and sporophyte is responsible for the production of asexual spore, which again produces the gametophyte. Okay. Now see the mature gametophyte. If we talk about the gametophytes in the bryophytes, the mature gametophyte in most of the mosses is leafy. Okay. ये जो gametophyte होते हैं कैसे, they shows the leaf-like structures in their appearance, okay, but in the liverworts, okay, in the mosses they may be leafy, but in the liverworts and the hornworts they are flattened gametophyte which are called as the thallus. So what you are seeing in this particular picture is the gametophyte, okay. As you can observe, the gametophyte is quite green, photosynthetic, right, and this gametophyte is able to produce the particular kind of male and female gamete which after the fusion results in the sporophytic generation. So the gametophyte in the bryophyte, when we earlier talk about that, the bryophyte can be divided into the mosses and the liverworts, right? In mosses, it can be leafy, and in liverworts, it can be flattened thallus. Okay, so gametophyte shape and size also varies among the different members of the bryophytes. Now see the branching of the thallus may be fork. Okay, now observe this branching of the thallus. The branching may be fork. Okay, that is they have clear distinction in between their thalluses. This shows the fork thalluses. Then regularly frond like frond, as you know, this word we use to describe the photosynthetic organ in the algae. Okay, so just like that frond, they shows the thallus. Okay, they may have frond like appearance, or they sometimes they are completely irregular. Okay, that is possessing don't they do not possess any kind of particular shape. Sometimes they are completely irregular, sometimes they show the frond like structures. Okay, now see their margins may be smooth. Okay, the thallus margin, just you can observe this margin of the thallus, it may be smooth, or sometimes it may show the tooth areas, that is the rough margins. So margin of the thallus may be smooth, or it may be rough, or the tooth. Okay, it may be roofed, that is it is creating the roof, just like this this particular thallus is creating the roof. That is they are coming out of the ground, and sometimes they can be the flat, that is they are completely flat on the ground, and they do not found any, they do not create any leaf, roof, right? Or the curve inward or downward, you can observe in this particular picture, they can curve inside as well, and they can curve downward as well. Okay, inside downward curving can be seen in this particular thalluses. So thalluses may be the frond like or the irregular in shape, maybe their margins are smooth or tooth, they may form the roof, or sometimes they are just the flat or curve inward or the downward. Okay, now consider the sex organs which are produced by these bryophytes, because just now we have described the gametophyte which is revolving around the sporophyte, and we have discussed that this gametophyte is responsible for the production of the male gamete and the female gamete. So which kind of male gamete and the female gametes are produced by these bryophytes? Now consider this. The sex organs in the bryophytes are multicellular. Why it is important? Why it is important to say that the sex organs in the bryophytes are multicellular? Because when we talk about the algae, when we have discussed about the algae, we have talked about the unicellular gametes. Okay, all unicellular gametes were there, and these unicellular gametes are responsible for the fusion and creating the zygote. But in the bryophytes, what we find? We find the multicellular gametes. Okay, that is more than one cell is present in the sex organs. Okay, so multicellular gametes are present in the bryophytes, which makes them different from the algae. This is very important, because sometimes UPSC asks you the simple question that how you can distinguish between bryophytes and the algae, or how you can distinguish between the bryophytes with that of the pteridophytes. So all these points are very important, that the sex organs in the bryophytes are multicellular, while in the algae we find the unicellular sex organs. Now see, the male sex organ is called as the antheridium. Okay, and which produces the bioflagellated anthrozoids. So the male sex organ which is produced by the gametophyte, it is called as the antheridium, and this antheridium is responsible for the production of antherozoids. Please remember the name, they produce the antherozoids, and these antherozoids are biflagellated, that is they possess the two flagella. They are biflagellated, and as you know, we have discussed flagella thoroughly. The flagella is responsible for the movement of the particular structure. So the male sex organ in the bryophytes is the antheridium, which is responsible for the production of antherozoids, which are biflagellated, that is possess the two flagella. While on the other hand, the female sex organs are called as the archegonium. Okay, what it is called? It's called archegonium. And this archegonium is a flask-shaped structure, and it produces only the single egg. Only the single egg is produced by this particular female structure, that is called as the archegonium. So the male structure is called as the antheridium, and the female structure, female sex organ, is called as the archegonium. The male sex organ antheridium is producing the anthrozoids, which are biflagellated, and the female sex organ, which is called as archegonium, is producing only the single egg. What you are seeing in this particular picture, this thala is producing the male sex organ, that is the antheridium. Antheridium structure is given, antheridium picture is given in this particular picture. So you can observe these are all the antheridia. Okay, so antheridium is responsible for the production of male gamete, that is called as the anthrozoids, and the archegonium, which is called as the female gamete, it is responsible for the production of the single egg. Okay, now consider the archegonia are the stalk and the multicellular. Of course, the sex organs in the bryophytes are the multicellular in nature, and the archegonia shows the stalk below, and they are multicellular, and they are flask-like structure. Okay, just like they are creating the flask, the female sex organs, and they are consisting of the elongated upper portion, which is called as the neck, Okay, upper portion is quite elongated, and the lower portion is swollen, which is called as the venter. Okay, so very carefully you have to remember the neck and venter. These are two structures are creating the female gamete that is called as the archegonium. When we study the individual members of the bryophytes, we are going to study the archegonium structure in very detail. Okay, you have to draw the cellular diagram as well. Okay, so the archegonia, of course, the sex organs in the bryophytes are the multicellular organs, and they are in the archegonia, they are primarily made up of the two structures, which is called as the neck and the venter. Okay, and inside this neck and venter structure, we find the single egg there. All right. Now consider the antheridia. Antheridia consists of the rounded structure. Okay, so, just like the archegonia shows the flask shape, the antheridia shows the round shape. Okay, it's a round shape, and consisting of the single layered jacket. Okay, there is a single layer jacket outside it, just like this. Single layer jacket is there, and which is surrounded by the central mass of cell, which is called as the androcytes. What we have inside are the androcytes or the anthrozoids. Okay, so single layer of jacket is there, and this jacket inside preserve the particular male gametes, which are called as the androcytes or the anthrozoids. Okay, now each of these androcytes is got converted into the bioflagellated anthrozoids. So bioflagellated having two flagella anthrozoids are there, which are created from these androcytes. So archegonia and the antheridia are the female sex organ and the male sex organ respectively. Archegonia on the one hand is the flask shape, while the antheridia is the rounded structure. The archegonia is made up of the neck and venter, while the antheridium is made up of the jacket and the androcytes. Okay, and the archegonia is responsible for the production of the single egg only, while on the other hand, the many anthrozoids, bioflagellated anthrozoids, are created in the antheridia. So this is the difference between the male sex organ and the female sex organ in the bryophytes. So male sex organ antheridia and the female sex organ archegonia both are produced by these particular gametophyte. As you know, gametophyte is responsible for the production of male sex organ as well as the female sex organ. That is it literally means ki archegonia and the antheridia both are produced on the gametophytes. Okay, now consider. See, the ovum remains in the archegonia. That is, ovums are or the single egg, whatever the single egg is there, or in short we called it as a ovum. This ovum do not liberate from the archegonia. Okay, archegonia do not liberate this ovum, but this ovum is retained inside this particular archegonium structure. Okay, neck and venter is there. So inside this neck and venter protection, these particular ovum is situated there, and it cannot go out. It do not disperse from the parent body. While the anthrozoids are released in the water, where they are released in the water, as we have rightly described the bryophytes before, that they require the fertilization for their, that they require water for their fertilization. So these anthrozoids are released in the water and they swim. And they swim and come in contact with the archegonium by using the chemotaxis. That is, they are using the chemical signals. Okay. So some types of the chemicals are released by these archegonia, which these chemical signals are received by these anthrozoids, and these anthrozoids, by using this chemotaxis, they reach to the archegonium. They came in contact with the archegonium, and anthrozoid fuses with the egg to produce finally the zygote. So finally there is a single egg, and there are the anthrozoids which are swimming in the water, and they are come in contact with the particular archegonium which contains the single egg due to the chemical signaling, that is the chemotaxis. And after the fusion of the male gamete, that is the anthrozoids, and the female gamete, which is called as the single egg or the ovum, it results in the formation of zygote. Okay, so gametophyte, after producing the male gamete and the female gamete and the male gamete, they are by using the water as the abiotic source for the traveling, they fuses together to produce the zygote. Now this zygote do not undergo reduction division immediately. Okay, so there is a zygote which takes some time for the reduction, and now this zygote, they are produce multicellular body which is called as the sporophyte. Okay, so now the zygote, as zygote is got created, this zygote is now going to produce the multicellular body which is called as the sporophyte. Okay, multicellular sporophyte is created out of this particular zygote. Okay, now consider this particular diagram. Here given there is a male gametophyte and the female gametophyte. Male gametophyte is producing the antheridia and the female gametophyte is producing the egg. After the fusion, there is a fertilization, okay, and there is a formation of zygote. And after the zygote, it develops into the sporophyte, and this sporophyte releases the spores to produce the again gametophyte, that is the male gametophyte and the female gametophyte. This is the male gametophyte, this is the female gametophyte. After they achieve the growth, complete growth, that is the male gametophyte and the female gametophyte. The male gametophyte produces the antheridia and the female gametophyte produces the egg. After their fusion, it results in the zygote, and this zygote is got converted into the sporophyte, and then sporophyte produces the spores. Again, these spores germinate to male gametophyte and the female gametophytic plant. Okay, so this is how there is an alternation of generation in the bryophytes. That is, the haploid gametophytic generation alternates with the diploid sporophytic generation. Now consider the sporophyte. Okay, now from zygote, the sporophyte is evolved. Now see, this is a very important slide. You should carefully understand this. Okay, now the sporophytes are dependent on the gametophyte for their nutrition and develops within the female sex organs that are archegonia attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte. Very, very important. See, now we have described the gametophyte like this. See, consider this is an gametophyte. So here is the female gametophyte, and here we have the archegonia. Okay, now inside this archegonia we have the single egg, right, like this. Now we have discussed that the anthrozoids will travel by using the water. Okay, bioflagellated anthrozoids will travel by using the water and the chemotaxin, and they will came here and the fuses with the egg, and it results in the formation of zygote. So now consider this zygote is present on the female gametophyte, right? This is the female gametophyte, and on this female gametophyte this zygote is present. Now this zygote, which will result in the sporophyte. Okay, now the sporophyte will come out of this. Now please use this picture to understand this. Below, what we have here, many gametophytes. Okay, many gametophytes we have at the bottom, which are green in color. Now see, from this gametophyte, as we have discussed here, that here is the zygote is formed. Now from this zygote, this is how you can saying about this structure. This is how the sporophyte is created. So all the structure which are elongated on these gametophyte, these are called as the sporophyte. So sporophyte is growing on the body of female gametophyte, right? So on the female gametophyte, the sporophyte is growing, and for nutrition, it depends on this particular photosynthetic gametophyte, because photosynthesis is done by this female gametophyte, and all the photosynthetic nutrition is provided to these sporophyte by using these gametophytes. So these gametophyte is producing the photosynthetic product, and this photosynthetic product is provided to this sporophyte. That literally means the sporophyte is completely dependent on the gametophyte in the bryophytes. Okay, so on the gametophytes, these sporophytes are growing on the body of gametophytes, and these gametophytes providing all the required nutrition to these sporophytes. Okay, so whatever the sporophytes are there, these are only growing on the female gametophyte, and female gametophyte is responsible for giving them a nutrition. Okay, and whatever the photosynthesis product is there, it's shared with the sporophyte, and sporophyte grow on this particular nutrition. Now consider the structure of this sporophyte. Now, as we have rightly described, that sporophyte are the diploid plant bodies. They are diploid. Okay, gametophyte on the one hand, here we have the haploid gametophyte, but here we have the diploid sporophyte. So this diploid sporophyte usually consists of the basal foot. Okay, this area called as the foot, and then elevating area is called as the seta. This called as the seta, right? Foot, then the seta, and finally here we have the capsule. So the sporophyte of the bryophyte is typically divided into the three structures. The first structure is called as the foot. Sorry, here we have the foot, and then second we have the seta, and third we have the capsule. So the whatever the sporophytes are created out of the gametophyte, it consists of the three layers, the three parts: the foot, seta, and the capsule. Okay, you can observe this is a particular sporophyte, and this sporophyte is divided into foot, seta, and capsule. Please remember, this is a diploid sporophyte, and this is an haploid gametophyte. Okay, haploid gametophyte is there. Just you can observe in this particular picture, this is an haploid gametophyte, and on this particular haploid gametophyte, the diploid sporophyte is growing, and this diploid sporophyte, for nutritionally, it is dependent on the gametophyte, and the plant body of this sporophyte is divided into the foot, seta, and capsule. Okay, किस पे dependent है? It is dependent on the foot, seta, and the capsule, right? See, it is divided into food strata and capsule. Now consider this. The capsule, it consists of the columella. Okay, there is a presence of the columella in this particular capsule, because this capsule shows the very complex structure. Plus, inside it also contains the spores. Okay, see inside here, spores are liberating, and the spores are present inside this capsule. Okay, then there is a operculum. This operculum is nothing but the opening through which these spores are coming out. Okay, now consider these are spores, and there is a calyptra, which is the special structure which is guarding the female gametophyte. Okay, now see, so the spores are released. Okay, spores are released here. Spores, operculum, annulus, and it all constitute the capsule. And the calyptra, okay, whatever the calyptra is there, it's nothing but the enlarged archegonial venter. Okay, because as you know, in the we have talked about the structure of the archegonia, there is a presence of neck and there is a presence of venter. The enlarged venter in these sporophytes is called as the calyptra. Okay, it protects the capsule. Yeah, what is the function of this calyptra? It protects the capsule. The calyptra is usually lost before the spores are released from the capsule. Okay, before it is releasing of the, it release the spores from the capsule. This calyptra will be loose there. Okay, because there is no work after the giving out the spores for this calyptra. So the sporophyte, which is created out of the male and female gamete fusion, this sporophyte is divided into three structures. First structure is called as the foot, second is called as the seta, and third one is called as the capsule. Now this capsule, being the complex structure, this contains the operculum, spores, calyptra, etc. like things. Okay, and it is responsible for the giving the spores. And now these spores will again creates the gametophyte. Okay, whatever the spores which are coming out of this sporophyte, this will create the male gametophyte and the female gametophyte. Again, from this male gametophyte, the anthrozoids are released, and the female gametophyte, oohams, are released. Zygotes are formed, and these zygotes are responsible for the creation of this sporophyte again, which is divided into food, seta, and capsule. Right, now consider some cells of the sporophyte. Of course, it undergoes the reduction division, that is the meiosis, because it's a diploid tissue. It undergoes the meiosis to create the haploid spores, right, to produce the haploid spores. As you know, you must have studied about the process of meiosis, that from the one cell, the four cells, one diploid cell, the four haploid cells are created. So the haploid spores are created, and these spores are dispersed by the mechanism which ensures dispersal in the dry weather only, of course. And these liberated spores later germinate to create the gametophyte. So this is how simply the gametophyte and the sporophytic generation alternates with each other. The gametophyte produces the gametes, and the sporophyte produces the spore. Gametophyte produces the haploid male gamete and the female gamete, antheridia and archegonia, and the sporophyte produces the haploid spores, which will converts into the gametophyte. Right, now see, when we talk about the bryophyte, we generally divided them into the liverworts and the mosses. Okay, now let us consider their classification. How different characteristics are possessed by the liverworts and the mosses. Okay, we should be able to distinguish between the liverworts bryophytes and the mosses bryophytes. Now consider the liverworts usually grow in the moist, shady habitat. Now we are talking only about the liverworts. Okay, you should remember this carefully. Now the liverworts are growing in the moist and shady habitats, such as the banks of the streams. Whatever the streams are running, water streams are running, along with their banks, these bryophytes are growing. Okay, now the marshy ground, of course, which contains the moisture, and the dump soil, which also contains the moisture, and on the bark of the trees and deep in the woods, all these liverworts likes to grow. Okay, so liverworts, as you can observe in this picture as well, they like the moisture, and on this particular moisture, these liverworts can freely grow there. Okay, so they generally require the typical bryophytic habitat, that is the shady and the moisture habitat is required by these particular liverworts. Now consider the plant body of the liverworts is thalloid. Thallus like plant body is there. For example, see the Markensia. What you are seeing in this particular picture is the Markensia. Okay, this is the complete one thallus. The heart shaped thallus is shown by this particular liverworts. Okay, see, this is the Markensia picture, and you can observe here the heart shape like Markensia is there, right? While the mosses shows the very radial symmetry. Okay, on the other hand, when we see the mosses, we will discuss that. See, the thallus is dorsoventral. Dorsoventral, which literally means which is flat from both the side. That is, for the upper portion and the lower portion, or the dorsal side or the ventral side, both are flattened, and they are attached to the substratum firmly. You can clearly observe this horizontal flattening is there. The upper portion as well as lower portion, or the dorsal side and ventral side, both shows the flattening, and that is why we describe this thallus as a dorsoventral thallus. Okay, and it is closely appressed to the substrate. As you can observe in this particular picture, they are closely appressed. They are closely attached to the substratum. Now the leafy members in these particular liverworts shows the tiny leaf-like appendages on the in the two rows on the stem-like structure. Just like we have discussed that this shows the just like the stem-like structure like Caulilia, and on both the sides the leaves are arising like this. Okay, in the leafy members, but in the thyroid members, they shows closely approximation to the substratum. Okay, so when we talk about the liverworts, these liverworts used to grow in the shady and the moisture area. Plus, their thallus body is closely attached to the substratum, and the leafy members show two rows on which the leaf-like appendages are growing on the stem-like structure. Okay. Now, consider the reproduction in these liverworts. How the reproduction occurs? See, the asexual reproduction in these liverworts takes place by the fragmentation of the thalli. This is very simple because in the thallus, see, thallus of the Mertensia is like this, and the thallus of this Mertensia is simply break. That is, it will break this part like this in the fragmentation, and this part will grow into the another new thallus. That is the new plant body of the Mertensia. So the fragmentation is the way of reproduction, way of the vegetative reproduction can be found in the liverworts, and by simply fragmenting the thallus, if they simply just create the fragment of the thallus, the individual fragment can grow into the new whole thallus, that is into the new whole bryophyte. Okay, and there are the certain special bodies which is present in the specialized structure which is called as the gymma or gymmi. Okay, gymma is the singular. So gymma bodies are also created in these particular bryophytes, just like this. See, all these are the gymma bodies. Okay, and these gymma bodies is highlighted here as well. Here, of course, see this is an highlighted gymma body, and this gymma body is responsible for the vegetative reproduction as well. Okay, so fragmentation can occur, plus the gymma are also created, and inside these gymma are specialized structures are created, and all these specialized structures can convert into the new whole plant. Okay, now see, the gymmas are green. Yeah, of course, you can observe in this particular picture, this is the green in color. Okay, that is able to photosynthesize. Then they are multicellular, they are made up of more than one cells, and these are asexual birds. Okay, these are they do not have anything to relate with the sexual reproduction, but these are purely the asexual birds. Okay, which develops in a small receptacle which is called as the gymma cups. Okay, where they are growing in the gymma cups. In these gymma cups they are created gymma bodies, and these gymma bodies you can clearly observe in this particular picture. See how many gymma bodies are created inside. So these gymma bodies are located on the thallus. Now this gymma become detached from the parent body, that is this particular gymma. Every gymma here we are detached from the plant body like this. They spread in the surrounding, and they germinate to form the new thalli. Okay, new thallus is created out of this gymma. So this is how the vegetative reproduction can be seen in the liverworts. That is, they can simply break off. They can break off their particular thallus structure, and every broken part convert into the new thallus. While they can create the gymmas as well, gymma cups as well. Inside this, they create the gymmies, and these gymmies, when they are liberated from the gymma cups, they can convert into the whole new thalli, that is whole new Mertensia plant. So liverworts shows the very typical kind of vegetative reproduction in the form of fragmentation and in the form of special asexual bodies which are called as the gymma cups. Okay, now consider this during the sexual reproduction. Okay, as we have discussed just the sexual reproduction, that the male and the female sex organs are produced either on the same thalli. Okay, if it is produced on the same thalli, it is called as the homothallic, and if it is produced on the different thalli, it is called as the heterothallic. As you can observe, this is the single thalli. If the male and the female organ is produced on the same thalli, it is called as the homothallic, and if the male gamete is produced on the one thalli and the female is on the other thalli, it is called as the heterothallic. So homothallic and heterothallic can be there, and after their fusion, of course, we have discussed in detail that the zygote is formed and the zygote is converted into the sporophyte, which is differentiated into the food seta and capsule. And here is the beautiful diagram which is showing that how the gametophyte is handling the sporophyte. Here, what we have at the base is the gametophyte. This one is the gametophyte. And what you are seeing above here, what we have is the sporophyte. And this sporophyte is nutritionally dependent on this gametophyte, and this sporophyte is divided into foot, then the seta and the capsule. Okay, foot, seta and capsule structures are there. So the bryophytes, the liverworts shows the different types of reproduction. Vegetative reproduction is there, asexual reproduction is there, then there is a sexual reproduction. In the sexual reproduction, the male and female gametes are created. Okay, they may be homothallic or heterothallic, and the resultant sporophyte contains the foot, seta and the capsule. Okay. Now see, after the meiosis, of course, once there is a formation of sporophyte, meiosis occurs, spores are created. These are produced within the capsule, and these spores germinate to give rise to the free living gametophyte. So gametophytes are free living. We are describe them as a free living gametophytes because gametophytes are the free living in the bryophytes, but the sporophytes are not the free living. They are dependent on the gametophyte. Okay, but gametophytes, which are germinated from the spores which are created by the capsule, are the free living organisms, right? So carefully remember this. Now see, while we talk about the liverworts, let's compare them with the mosses. Okay. Now generally this mosses shows some advancement in the bryophytes. Okay, on the evolutionary line. See, the mosses are predominant in mosses. The predominant stage in their life cycle is the gametophyte. Okay, that is the gametophyte is the most dominating phase in their life cycle. See, which consists of two stages. Okay, gametophyte itself is consist of the two phases. The gametophyte of the mosses shows the two phases. The first phase is called as the protonema stage. Okay, first stage, whatever the first stage is there, it is called as the protonema stage. Now consider this protonema stage carefully, which develops directly from the spores. Okay, spores, as you know, the sporophyte will produce the spores first, right? Spores were created here, and now these spores are germinating. As they are starts to germinate, these protonema stages form. Okay, just like this, if they start germinating, this first stage is form is called as the protonema stage. Okay, it is creeping. Okay, that is, it is moving along the ground like this. See, consider this is the spore, and it is germinating, and this is creeping. It is growing like this along the ground. Okay, that is bottom to the ground. It is green in color. Okay, of course it can photosynthesize, and it is branch like this. Okay, it shows the branching, and it is frequently filamentous because the long filaments are created like this. So just like this, the plant body is first created after there is a germination of spore. This is the spore. Okay, this structure is called spore, and spore is created from the sporophyte, right? Sporophyte is creating the spore, and this spore after germination, it creates the filamentous structure like this, which shows the green branching structure and the filamentous structure. This stage of the gametophyte is called as the protonema stage. Okay, please carefully remember that this is called as the protonema stage. Okay, how the protonema stage is created? It is created out of the spores. Okay, see, we have placed here the picture to understand the protonema stage. After the germination, consider this is a spore, and spore is germinating, and this spore is germinated like that, and after the branching is created, somewhat green filamentous, right? Green filamentous branching is there. Okay, like this. So the protonema stage is the first stage in the gametophyte of the mosses. Now consider, each protonema can spread over the several centimeter. Okay, some centimeter it can grow, and the second stage is called as the leafy stage. Okay, then the leafy stage occurs, which develops from the secondary protonema. See, this is how we have described it. There's like a small spore, and there is a germination, formation of a filamentous structure like this, and it shows the branching. This is called as the primary protonema. Now from this primary protonema, the secondary protonema is there. Okay, secondary protonema occurs there, and this secondary protonema then give rise to the leafy stage, that it contains the leafy areas. Okay, leafy stage is created out of this particular secondary protonema. So leaves are created later, and this looks like a leafy leafy area is there, and they shows the leafy gametophyte then. Okay, because of the lateral buds. Now see, they consist of the upright. Okay, they are standing like this, like a plant, and slender axis bearing spirally arranged leaves like this. They show the spirally arranged leaves on the central axis. Okay, now they are attached to the soil through the multicellular rhizoids. Of course, we have discussed this. This stage is bears the sex organs because it's a gametophyte, and now it can bear the male and female sex organ. So in the life cycle of the mosses, we find the two stages. The first is the protonema stage. You should carefully remember this because you have to write these stages in the UPSC mains. Protonema stage, and then we have the leafy stage. Okay, protonema stage is there, then the leafy stage is there, and this leafy stage is later responsible for creation of the male and female gamete, which fuses to form the sporophyte. Again, this sporophyte will produce the spores, and spores again germinate into the primary stage, which is called as the protonema stage, and the secondary stage, which is called as the leafy stage. Okay, so this is how this is revolving. All right. Now consider the next slide, that is the vegetative reproduction. Okay, that is how the vegetative reproduction occurs in the mosses. Let us consider the vegetative reproduction in the mosses is also by the fragmentation and the budding of the secondary protonema. This is very important because when the spores are germinating and it creating the protonema stage like this. Okay, filamentous protonema stage, it shows the branching like this. Okay, this is called as the primary protonema, and from this primary protonema, the secondary protonema grow there, and if the secondary protonema fragments off from the parent body, this whole fragment can result into the new bryophyte. Okay, so the secondary protonema is also the means of asexual reproduction or the vegetative reproduction in the mosses. Okay, mosses have the speciality that is the secondary protonema can be used for their sexual way of reproduction. Okay, well, the sexual way of reproduction is also the same, that is the antheridia and archegonia are produced at the apex of the leafy shoot, and this antheridia produces the anthrozoids and the archegonia produces the single ovum, and after their fusion it creates the zygote, and zygote results in the creation of sporophyte, and this sporophyte later converts into the latter produces the spores, and these spores give rise to the gametophyte. Whatever the mosses are there, mosses also has the ability to reproduce by the fragmentation as well as by the budding, and there is a special structure which is called as the secondary protonema, which can be found in these particular mosses to reproduce vegetatively as well. All right, so this is how the bryophytes are there. We have studied their habitat. First of all, we have taken their introduction, how bryophytes are there. In that category, we have discussed their amphibian nature. Then we have studied their habitat. After the habitat, we have studied how the structure is shown by these particular bryophytes. After the structure, we have largely discussed the reproduction, how the alternation of generation occurs in these particular bryophytes, that is the haploid gametophyte and the diploid sporophyte. And after the reproduction, we have studied how the bryophytes can be classified into the mosses and the liverworts, right? So all those things are very important regarding the bryophytes, because most of the time UPSC mains ask you the simple question which is introductory in nature. Actually, when you observe the questioning which is asked by the UPSC mains examination, examiners ask the question which is introductory in nature, just how the what is the habitat of the bryophyte, or what types of thallus is shown by the bryophytes, or what is the simple classification of the bryophyte. These types of questions are there, and that is why this lecture is very much important from that point of view. All right, so this is all about the bryophytes. Okay, what we have studied is the bryophytes, and these bryophytes, all these characteristics of the bryophytes you should carefully remember. Okay, now see, as we have already discussed that the antheridia and archegonia, when the fertilization occurs, the zygote develops into the sporophyte, which again contains the food seta and the capsule, right? And the sporophyte of the mosses is elaborate than the liverworts. This is the last and important line, that the sporophyte which is created in the liverworts is less developed as compared to the sporophyte which is created in the mosses. That is, mosses shows the more elaborate sporophyte than the liverworts. Okay, liverworts से ज्यादा elaborate जो है sporophyte वो mosses का होता है. Mosses are showing the more elaborate structure and differentiation in the sporophyte as compared to the liverworts. So from the evolutionary point of view, this is important that the mosses are the more advanced as compared to the liverworts. So liverworts are lacking behind than the mosses. In that sense, the mosses have the very much differentiated sporophyte as compared to the liverworts. Okay. Live fragmentation. See, the fragmentation of these gametophyte results in the vegetative reproduction. Of course, the living fragments has the potential to grow into the complete new gametophyte, right? So vegetative reproduction we have already discussed in the liverworts, which is same in the mosses as well. All right. So this is all about this topic. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like this video, share this video with your friends who are studying the botany, and if you haven't subscribed to the Botany Capsule channel yet, please subscribe to the Botany Capsule channel for UPSC examination. Again, thank you very much for giving your time. See you in the next video lecture. Thank you.